Welcome back, fight fans, to episode number 274 of the Neutral Corner Boxing Podcast. I am your host, Michael Montero, for The Ring Magazine, ringtv.com, and the Ring Digital YouTube, where you are checking me out live right now. A reminder, as always, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you click that notification bell so you never miss out on a live episode of the show. But just in case you do, don't worry. The audio podcast version gets released on my platforms, Montero Unboxing, podcast platforms all over the world within 24 hours. So at some point on Tuesday, no matter what part of the world you're in, you can get the audio podcast. But if you want to catch us live here on the video, it's every Monday, 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is TNC 274 for the week of July 24. And I know a lot of you guys are going to want to get on the phone and talk about the fun fight we had this weekend. We had a damn good fight in Texas, but unfortunately, Mr. Nelson Vasquez didn't watch the same fight we all watched, right? So a shit scorecard left a nasty, shitty diarrhea stain on what was a damn good fight. Credit to both Brian Castaño and to Jermell Charlo for putting on a good fight with some good ebb and flow back and forth. I thought both guys got buzzed and, rocked a few times. They held strong. Charlo made a late push to make it a close fight. Castaño held his ground, even though he got buzzed a couple times late in the fight. It was good stuff, man. And then Nelson Vasquez took a hot steaming shit all over it, unfortunately. Before I go any further, I want to show you guys, let me cover up my address here. New issue of Ring Magazine is out, and just got it in the mail today. Remember, some of you might remember doing like pen pals when you were young, and you get that letter in the mail, and it was like the special treat. I get that every month with Ring. It's pretty damn cool. That I'm going to open this up right here on the show. You guys can watch me, listen to me rip open my Ring Magazine. But it's like Christmas every month. I get a special present in the mail every month. And with this issue, the Pacquiao saga continues. Check that out. And there's an article in here that I'm not going to spend too long talking about this, but I can't remember what page it's on. Let's see, page 46. And this is the article that went back and forth about 100 times because of all the drama. And unfortunately, this was like the third revision of this article. You see right there. Pinoy Power. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Pinoy Power by Michael Montero. That's me. This article originally was going to be about John Rael Casimiro and Guillermo Rigondeaux. That was my original piece. And of course, that got blown up because of all the performance-enhancing drugs testing, battle, beef, whatever, that kept going back and forth on Twitter between Team Donaire and Team Casimiro when Donaire was put into that fight and Rigo was put on the sidelines. Anyway, long story short, short story long, we went to print with this piece, and then what happens? Boom! Donaire's out, Rigondeaux's back in. So I talked to Doug Fisher. We are going to post my original article up on ringtv.com, but we're going to wait until it's closer to the actual fight. So you guys will get to check out my original article that I submitted for this fight that between Rigondeaux and Casimiro. So that will be on the site. But for now, that article in this latest issue of Ring Magazine is kind of a collector's item because it's one of, and look, there have been a ton of articles we've written over the years about fights that get canceled, postponed, replacements come in, it just a million things could happen in boxing. And that is part of the headache of doing a magazine in the sports world, especially a sport like boxing in the 21st century. But anyway, had to share that with you guys. So, okay. As far as today's show, I know a lot of you guys are going to want to get in on the phones. Give me about 10, 15 minutes to rant, and then I'm handing the show over to you guys, okay? So phone lines are open if you want to get in now or if you want to wait 10, 15 minutes. There's really no news and notes. There's nothing to cover in terms of news and notes. So I'll get to the chat here on YouTube, of course, and I'll get some of you guys' comments up on the screen. But there was the fight card last Saturday, July 17, which I'll get into. I'll review that. And then this week, there's a few fights going on, but really there's nothing that big. There's not a whole lot to preview. So this show is going to be kind of dedicated to your guys' calls if you want to get in and talk about and give your thoughts about what happened Saturday in San Antonio. Real quick, we got a super chat here from Feeling Dangerous 113. Thank you so much, my man. He says, I think these bad scorecards change people's perceptions of the fight. People are trying to say Castaño won wider than he did. Thoughts? Yeah, I have seen people saying it was like 9-3 or 10-2 Castaño. That's way too wide, in my opinion. I scored it 7 rounds to 5. So let's just use your comment, Feeling Dangerous, to get into. We'll just segue right into this fight card, okay? Real quick, undercard action. We're going AT&T Center, San Antonio, Texas. TGB Promotions, PBC on Showtime. This was last Saturday. And we'll get to the main event, obviously. But on the undercard, Amilcar Vidal, a 25-year-old fighter out of Uruguay who now fights out of California, Coachella, California, to be exact. He improved to 13-0 with a majority decision win over Emmanuel Alim, who is now 1-3-1 in his last 5. This was a middleweight fight. So Vidal has some big holes in this game, and Alim kind of showed that to us. And good matchmaking, because Alim was going to be able to do just that, survive and expose some of the holes in Vidal's game without beating him. That's what Alim does for fighters at this level. So Vidal is an interesting prospect, but long way to go. Plenty to develop there. They had to pump the brakes and take their time with him. Rolando Romero improved to 14-0. He is a lightweight prospect out of Vegas, I think. TKO 7 win over late replacement Anthony Yigit. And he dropped Yigit in the 5th, twice in the 7th, and then called out Gervonta Tank Davis. There are a lot of people trolling and having fun with this on boxing Twitter. It was not the most fundamentally sound performance from Romero or Yigit, to be fair. It just, yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to say too much negative about it. It just wasn't the prettiest fight to watch. But Romero wants to fight Davis, apparently. They both are in the same promotion. I don't think Romero is necessarily going to get any better. He does seem to have some legit power in his fists. What the hell? Why not do it? The problem is they might put something like that on pay-per-view. I could see it now, guys. They would do Gervonta Davis, Rolando Romero on Showtime pay-per-view. I wouldn't put it past these guys. If that's off pay-per-view on regular Showtime, that's the kind of fight they can put on Showtime. And because of the buildup and hype that we get because of all the trash talk, that would get some attention. And it would get people watching Gervonta Davis that haven't seen him fight yet, other than watching a little 5-second clip of him on Twitter, an hour after his fight on pay-per-view. So it could happen. Not that I want to see the fight, but I'm just saying it could happen. All right, let's jump into this main event. Jermell Charlo split draw with Brian Castaño. Scores were 114-114. And then, so one judge had a draw. One judge had a 114-113 for Castaño. And I believe that included a 10-8 round. Don't quote me on that. And then Nelson Vasquez, somehow, some way, who the hell knows what this guy was watching or thinking. He scored this 117-111 for Charlo, or in other words, 9 rounds to 3. So even the biggest Charlo supporters and the biggest PBC pom-pom wavers, these guys on YouTube and stuff, the usual suspects, even they would admit, I think, there's no way either fighter really won 9 rounds in this fight. It was close. It was competitive. I scored at 115-113 for Castaño. And for me, it wasn't that hard of a fight to score. Just going by work, who was doing the cleaner punching, the rounds were pretty clear. There was a couple, maybe 2 or 3 swing rounds, but I thought for the most part, this was a pretty straightforward fight to score. And the wide variety in scorecards that I've seen on Twitter have been interesting. But from most reasonable people, most reasonable people seem to go from 6 rounds apiece to 8 rounds to 4 for Castaño, or somewhere in between there. That seems to be where the majority of logical, reasonable, objective boxing fans and media, and even fighters themselves, I've seen plenty of fighters tweeting about this fight. That's where the scorecards seem to range. Anything outside of that, is a bit too wide for my taste. Doug Fisher wrote about this. I want to tell you guys about a couple of things on ringtv.com related to this fight and this scorecard. Okay. First of all, go to Doug Fisher's mailbag. If you're not reading Doug's mailbag every Monday and every Friday, you're missing out. It's a go-to in boxing journalism. You guys should be checking that out every single freaking week. By the way, Steve Kim does a column now on Snack's website that I recommend checking out every time he posts. And there's a piece that Tom Gray posted that I'm going to share my screen and show you guys in just a second. But in Doug's mailbag, several people asked him about the scores and the judges and what could be done. I tweeted about this, right? That's always the question when something like this pops up, because nobody with a brain thinks that this was a 117-111 fight either way, but especially for Charlo. Okay, if it was 117-111 for Castaño, I still think that's too wide. But if you're going to give it to either fighter, Castaño did better, did the more consistent work throughout the fight. So that would be a little easier to accept. I still would think it's too wide. But anyway, no one thinks 117-111 Charlo is a reasonable score. So people were asking Doug about this. And Doug made a good point. The promoters, this is something a lot of you might not know. The promoter ultimately is who pays everybody involved in the promotion. So if it's a top-ranked show, okay, it doesn't matter if the main event is between two top-ranked fighters or a top-ranked fighter versus a PBC fighter. If it's a top-ranked promoted show, Top Rank is paying everybody, right? Let's say if it's a purse bid, a Top Rank outbids everybody and they win the purse bid. They're paying everybody, okay? And that includes the ring officials. So that includes the referee, that includes the timekeeper, that includes the judges. So in this case, PBC ultimately paid these judges and paid Nelson Vasquez's check. It's not the commission. So a lot of people were saying, oh, Texas again, Texas. Yeah, we've seen some shitty scorecards in Texas, but none of these three judges were from Texas. Vasquez is from Puerto Rico, right? It's an American territory, but it's not necessarily the continental USA. It certainly isn't Texas. So he's not a Texas judge, but he was flown into Texas by the PBC and approved by the Texas Commission. But ultimately, the people that paid him were the PBC. That's who cut the check for him. So his scorecard going wide for the A side, Charlo in this case, PBC house fighter, him being paid, Vasquez, by the PBC, scoring it widely, egregiously for the house fighter. Yeah, not the best look. I can't think of another sport where this happens. To use it's almost impossible to use an analogy to another or a comparison to another sport, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like with the NFL, okay, the National Football League here in America. If the Patriots play the Buffalo Bills, neither of those teams are paying the ref. The referee, the officiating crew is paid by the NFL, right? Because there's one central league. It's a similar thing in the UFC because the UFC is the premier brand. Everything's UFC over in MMA. Now in boxing, of course, there's several UFCs. This is something I talk about all the time. So it's the promoter that flies these judges all around the world and pays them. And that's something you guys need to keep in mind. It's not necessarily the German commission or the Texas commission, the California commission, the Japanese commission, whoever, paying these judges and leading to these bad results. However, the Texas State Commission executives were asked about this scorecard and would anything be done, and they conveniently declined to comment. So the commission is not without fault here. What should happen, in my opinion, is the PBC should never work with Vasquez again. He should be put on a blacklist and he shouldn't get any work. And Texas should say, no, we're not having Vasquez work any fights here in Texas for 24 months. We're suspending him for 24 months. The Nevada State Athletic Commission, which tends to kind of run the athletic commissions here in America, they should suspend Vasquez. That's what you should see happen. None of that's going to happen. That's the issue. That's the issue. The promoters, the commissions, the people involved, the power structure, They're not doing anything about it. They're not going to. So what I've been saying for the longest time is the fighters need to take control of this situation. If I am a fighter going into a fight and it's fight week in whatever state, let's say I'm fighting in Florida, in the Florida Commission, this is what happens, guys. The week of the fight, the commission will hand a pool of ring officials, a bunch of names, maybe it's a dozen names, whatever, to the promotion and say, here is our approved ring officials for this fight. Here are the referees that are going to be working. Here are the judges. A few of these guys are going to be judges and referees. They're going to swap back and forth depending on the fights. Do you object to any of these people? Okay. And the promotion, the fighters, whoever, they have the right to say, yeah, we don't approve of this person and that person. Now, the commission could say, well, we don't give a shit. But ultimately, who is the product in this whole thing? Who's the product? Who are we watching? Who are we paying to see? It's the fighters, correct? Most of us, like 95% of us, don't give a fuck if it's Al Heyman or Bob Arum or the WBC or the IBF. There's only a few crazy, wacky people on YouTube that really tend to care about that shit. The rest of us don't give a fuck. We care about the fighters involved, right? The fighters have all the power, guys. So I don't give a shit if you're a B-side. If you're a B-side going up against an A-side and you see Nelson Vasquez's name on there, if I'm anybody going up against a PBC fighter and I see Nelson Vasquez's name on the list of judges, I am refusing to fight until his name is taken off. Now, they can find a last-minute replacement the week of the fight. It's not easy, though. You do have the power. You can wait until the fucking weigh-in, right? The night before the fight, the night after the weigh-in, night before the fight, and say, you know what? I ain't fighting. If that dude is being the judge tomorrow, I ain't fighting. What are they going to do? Find somebody on 8 hours notice, right? You can do that if that's what it takes to get that person's name off the list. Fighters have control. The problem is a lot of times their team is not looking out for them and not saying, hey, man, this judge looks suspicious. It's not up to the fighter to know the history of all these judges. That's up to their team, their trainer, their manager, their advisor, whoever, to chime in and say, look, man, I've seen this judge screw up a lot of scores. We should get this guy off the list, or this woman, in the case of Adelaide Byrd and others. We should get this person off the list. The team should look after the fighters. You don't see that enough. Also, a lot of fighters let themselves get bullied into this B-side, A-side thing where they're basically told by the promoter, hey, you want off? Cool. You don't want to fight tomorrow? We'll find a replacement. We'll fly somebody in here. And hey, man, you're going to make $200,000 tomorrow. I guess you don't want to get paid. You can just go home. Here's a ticket. You and your team could go home and you ain't getting paid. And so the fighters will say, shit, because they got a whole team of people depending on them. Everybody wants their 10%, right? And they get bullied into going with it and going into a fight knowing that there's corrupt, I'm going to use the fucking word, corrupt ring officials working the fight or working the event in general. So that happens all the time. It is up to these fighters and their team, though, to have a fucking backbone and to start stepping up, because the commissions and the promoters and the networks ain't going to do a motherfucking thing about it. That's the truth, guys. It is up to the damn fighters themselves. Mark Ashley with the super chat. Thank you so much, Mark. He says, I have grown so suspect over how judges even get a job when I see cards like 117, 111. Is there just a great deal of nepotism? Boxing's rep seems very vulnerable in 2021. Yeah, there is nepotism. I mean, in the Texas State Commission, there's a lot of nepotism there. But guys, look, boxing is part of the sports industry. The sports industry is part of the entertainment industry. The entertainment industry is full of nepotism. Look at the fucking media. Look at some of the guys that weren't even around 2 or 3 years ago, and they're getting spots, promotional pieces on big network shows. Look at their last name, right? There's plenty of nepotism in fight media. And, sometimes you sleep your way up. Sometimes you schmooze your way up. Sometimes you drink your way up. There's different ways that people kind of skip in line. That happens in boxing, just like every other form of the entertainment industry. And of course, the judges and everything, that's a part of it. So yeah, that is a part of it. Got another. Oh, CJ Duncan with the super chat. Thank you so much, CJ. He says promoters should not foot the bill for judges. Yes, you're absolutely right. And that's what my man Doug was talking about in his mailbag. It's a great mailbag as usual. And he was just saying, look, man, like the promoters should not be paying these people because, again, even if there was zero corruption involved here, okay, and there's zero evidence of that. So I'm going to just point to just ineptitude. That's just what I'm going to point to in this particular instance. Even if it was just, to use a completely cliche statement, it was just Nelson Vasquez having an off night, a bad night at the office, right? I know that's probably making a lot of you cringe, but let's just say that really was the case. It's a really bad look for PBC because they're paying him. So PBC shouldn't be put in that position to look bad. Somebody else should pay the judges. And we need to find a way to do that. I think in the United States, I've been saying this forever. Look, I'm a small government guy. Throwing money at problems and stuff usually is not the way to fix them. But in this case, the United States has all these different state athletic commissions. And to me, that system is broken. I've written about this in articles. I've talked about this on shows for years. There needs to be a federal commission, one federal commission. And there needs to be a limited pool of judges, and they should go through constant training, and there should be accountability. People should be put on suspensions for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, depending on what the reasoning for it is. Like if you have a bad scorecard, right? Okay, maybe you're put on the naughty list for 6 months, but maybe the second time it's 12 months, maybe the third time it's 24 months. I don't know. I'm not going to set the parameters here, but I think that something like that is what we should have. A federal commission that sets the standards. All the states have to follow those rules. And you have universal, streamlined drug testing, weight management, all that kind of stuff. And the ring officials, the judges, all get the exact same training and are held to the exact same standard. You're not getting that right now. So a promoter, look, PBC might be like, yo, I don't want no part of Nelson Vasquez. A little too much heat right now. But who's to say Matchroom doesn't call him? Eddie might call him to go over to the UK and score a fight over there. They have some shitty judges over there too. So it's all over the place. This is not limited to Texas or to PBC, to one promoter or one state, one jurisdiction. It's all over the place. And the biggest issue is, it's kind of like, as I've said before, bad teachers unions, bad police unions, where you could just kind of hide a really bad cop or a really bad teacher and reshuffle them and move them to a different school, move them to a different police station, a different precinct. But you're not getting rid of the problem. And that's kind of how boxing operates. Like a really shitty teachers union, a really shitty police union. That's just how it operates, man. So bad officials get protected in the current system. And that's what we saw right here. All right, let's talk about the actual fight for a second, all right? And then I'm going to get to some calls. But first of all, I don't like the word robbery to describe this fight. I got to say, and this is going to piss off some of you, I'm actually okay with the draw. I'm okay with it. It's not how I scored the fight, but I'm okay with it because it was a close fight and there were a few swing rounds. I want to say, like, maybe, don't quote me here, but maybe like the 5th, the 6th, one of the championship rounds was a swing round. So there were 2 or 3 swing rounds there. If you give those all to Charlo, it's a draw. Now, I like to split swing rounds. Okay, that's the way I usually score. I split swing rounds. Doing that organically is difficult, but I'm just saying in general, that's the way I try to score. So if you split the swing rounds in this fight, you have Castaño winning a close fight. That's how I scored it. 115-113 Castaño. But if you give all the swing rounds to Charlo, you can have a draw. So I mention it because it is within the realm of possibility. All right. So I'm okay with it. But the 117-111 score, that feels like that dude, Nelson Vasquez, I'm not going to say he had a scorecard filled out before the show started, but he had the winner in mind before the show started. He felt, look, I predicted Charlo. You guys heard my preview last week. I actually predicted a 117-111 kind of fight. Now, for the record, part of my prediction is that I felt every close round would go to Charlo. That's just what I thought would happen. But that's obviously not what took place in this fight. It was more competitive than I thought it would be. It was a mixture of maybe overrating Charlo and underrating Castaño, maybe a mixture. And I'll talk about these guys' level in just a minute. But again, I don't want to use the word robbery. I do think that word gets overused. And I think that it's important we don't misuse that word. We live in an era, guys, where so many words get overused and abused. I just go to Twitter. Words that end in IST get overused. Words that end in RY is robbery. They get overused. Boxing Twitter, words like exposed, robbery. What are some other ones? Hype job, right? There's certain buzzwords and buzz phrases that just get overused. Not a robbery. Just not the best decision. But look, if let's say Vasquez had scored this 114, I don't think anyone's bitching. I think everyone's happy and everyone's like, cool. We have a draw. I edged it for Castaño, but cool. Draw is cool. Let's see this again. That's probably the attitude people would have. But when you have a scorecard like that, it leaves a stain. And that's what people are remembering more than the fight itself, which was actually a pretty damn good fight. Let's be honest. This was a good fight. CompuBox, because everyone's favorite subject, CompuBox. So in terms of jabs, Charlo won the battle of the jab. He landed 53 jabs to just 9 for Castaño. Now, normally, I would say that really points to the winner of the fight. In this instance, though, there's a couple of distinctions, okay? But the first one is Castaño is not a jabber. It's not what he does. And he was the shorter guy, smaller guy, trying to work his way inside. He wasn't going to win the battle of the jab. We knew that going in. It's not as if these were two even jabbers, okay? Charlo, that's what he does. He jabs all night. If he sees an opening and he knows that there's absolutely no way he's going to get counterpunched and he feels very, very safe, he'll go forward to throw some power punches. He doesn't take chances, though. He's not that kind of fighter. So he's going to stay on the back foot and jab and just use his height and reach advantages. So that doesn't surprise me. Now, I did expect Castaño to land more than 9 of them, but when you go to the power punching category, it's 164-98 for Castaño. And that to me is pretty telling because, again, he's this smaller, shorter guy. Isn't as fast as Charlo, right? With his feet or his hands. And he's landing that many more power punches. That's pretty telling. That is more telling to me than Charlo winning the battle of the jab. But it should be counted. Body punching in this fight was even. I did think Castaño would do a little bit more body punching than he did. Castaño's body punches were more effective than Charlo's, but Charlo's punches upstairs were more effective than Castaño's, okay? So all things considered, pretty even, okay? But round by round, which is how you score boxing matches, Castaño did more work. He was more active. He threw more punches. He landed more punches. And I think 8 or 9 of the 12 rounds. In terms of power punches, I want to say it was like 10 of the 12 rounds. So he was just a more active guy. So again, if you were going to shade a close round one way, I think it goes to Castaño. Let's see, what else? I thought it was very interesting. Derek James, trainer of Jermell Charlo in the corner, told him before the final round, you need a knockout. What does that tell you? Derek James, former trainer of the year, Derek James, telling Charlo, you need a knockout to win. Okay, he wasn't saying that to hype his fighter up. He wasn't playing psychology there. He was being honest. He felt that his man was behind. So even the hardcore Charlo fans, the hardcore Al Heyman, PBC, ride or die dudes out there on these YouTube channels and stuff, you got to listen to that and you got to hear that and you got to absorb that. That tells you something. When Derek James is telling Jermell Charlo, you need to knock this dude out to win, that's all I needed to hear. So people out there that are trying to defend that 117, 111 scorecard, dude, even Derek James disagrees with you. Charlo had a big second round and a big 10th round. He clearly won those rounds, but neither one was a 10-8. Some of you out there were saying those were 10-8 rounds. Sit the fuck down. Grow up. Okay, they were wide rounds, but not 10-8, dude. I'm trying to think of an example of a 10-8 round. without a knockdown. There have been some, okay? But that's not what happened in this fight. There were no 10-8 rounds in this fight. Slow down with all that bullshit. So Charlo had 2 big rounds. In Charlo's 2 big rounds were bigger rounds than any rounds Castaño had, okay? However, we score boxing round by round. It doesn't matter if you won your rounds bigger than I won my rounds. If I won more rounds than you, I won the fucking fight. Because I saw that on Twitter too. Oh, well, Charlo had the big 2nd and 10th round. Cool. That's 2 rounds, bro. There's 12 rounds in a championship fight. Okay. What's next? Mandatories are due for both fighters. Tim Tszyu is the WBO mandatory for Brian Castaño. And there is enough financial incentive, dare I say more financial incentive, for Castaño to travel to Australia and fight Tszyu than there would be fighting Charlo again. We might see that fight next. The only way that gets busted up is if Uncle Al says, hey, Brian, chill out. Wait until quarter 1, 2021. You both sit your butts on ice for the rest of the year. Quarter 1, 2022, we're going to go Showtime pay-per-view. And yeah, 80,000 people will buy it, but they're going to pay $80. And we'll whack that in half, and you get it. So you'll get more money sitting on your ass till early next year to fight on a pay-per-view that only a few people will see, instead of going to Australia and fighting Tim Tszyu in quarter 4 this year. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works out. And for Charlo, he's got a couple mandatories. So I don't know how that's all going to play out. There's a million different ways. I want to share my screen real quick and show you something Tom Gray did. I want you guys to bookmark this and keep an eye on it, okay? So what Tom is going to start doing is a series called Mark Your Card, all right? So check out my screen here. And he's going to start doing these for every time we see a shit scorecard. This is what I think he's already done a couple of these. But he gives you some details here, date of the fight, weight class, quick storyline, quick recap, gives you his scorecard, which is pretty much exactly what I had, 115, 113 Castaño. Then he gives you the official judges' scorecards. He gives you a copy of the actual scorecard, a photo of it, where we can see here where Nelson Vasquez gave Charlo 5 of the first 6 rounds. Man, that's just crazy, dog. That's just crazy. And then he gave him 4 of the last 6. Insane. And then Tom inserts a graphic here from a poll that Ring Magazine did over the weekend, asking you guys who won the fight. Over 3/4 of you said Castaño. And that's that. So I want you to look out for these, okay? Bookmark this and look for these. He's going to call these Mark Your Card. And he's going to track these shitty scorecards. This way, there is a track record, a paper trail, if you will, where you can go to get details on these sorts of events, because they don't exist very much. All right. Before I get to your calls, I want to do a quick preview of what we got coming up this week. Not a whole hell of a lot, but a few interesting notes. Thursday, July 22nd, Murat Gassiev, remember him? He's scheduled to fight in Moscow. And this will be only a second fight since he lost to Alexander Usyk back in July of 2018. So, dude, it's been 3 years. This will be his second fight in 3 years. And let's see if it goes through, because he's been scheduled to fight several times and those fights have fallen through. Friday, July 23rd, there is a Showbox card from Nebraska brought to you by King's Promotions. And this is the only televised card in America this week. Saturday, July 24th, Queensberry Promotions from Wembley Arena in London, UK. This is on BT Sport, but it's not picked up by ESPN Plus here in the United States. I can't find any American TV or streaming service that picked up this card. But Joe Joyce, undefeated heavyweight prospect, is going to fight Carlos Takam. Very experienced fighter. Takam's been in there with everybody. Joyce last fight was KO 10 win over Danny Dubois in November. And Takam fought, he had back-to-back losses in 2017 and 2018, but he's 4-0 since. However, it's against really bad opposition. Joe Joyce is 35. He's old for a prospect, but not really in boxing years. He hasn't taken a lot of wear and tear. Takam is 40, and he's much older in boxing years. Joyce went pro in 2017, and Takam went pro in 2005. He's been in there with everybody. He's been knocked out. He's had some really, really rough fights. What's interesting about this fight to me is Joyce is 6'6", 80-inch reach. Takam is 6'1", but also has an 80-inch reach. So he's a short guy. He can get under punches. He can make things awkward. He's has a ton of experience, but he also has long-ass arms. And I do think he's going to cause Joyce some problems. This is good matchmaking for him. This is going to be good learning on the job for Joe Joyce. Really sucks that I can't watch this in America. Also on this card, a Commonwealth welterweight fight. Chris Jenkins, a Welshman, going up against Ikao Isuman from a native of Botswana, but now fighting out of Nottingham. So that is what's up this week, man. Not a whole lot to preview at all, but that is what's going on. Let me see. I think I missed a couple super chats. Let me make sure I hit these before we go to the phones. You guys sit tight on the phones for just a few seconds here. Trini with the super chat. Thank you so much, Trini. Good to hear from you, man. And he just says, "Sup, bro? What's up? Thanks, man. Appreciate that." CJ Junkin with another super chat. Thank you, CJ. He says, PSA, if you're not the A side and on enemy turf, you're already down 3 rounds at the opening bell, won't get any swing rounds, and without a knockdown, a draw at best. Sadly, CJ, you are correct a lot of these times. You are correct. Sad, but true. All right, let's go to the phones here. We got a bunch. All right, let's jump right to it. A bunch of you guys have been hanging out on hold. 570, you're on the show. What's up?
Hey, Mike, like always, you got the bases covered. So I'm not going to delve into too much you already talked about. But, yeah, the only 3 scorecards you could have for that fight was a draw, 115-113, and 116-112 for Castaño.
Yeah.
Everything else, you're really, you're getting corrupt there. And that judge, I did my research on him. 1987 was his first world championship bout. So he has experience and he has a pretty good record. So we can't say it's ineptitude. Bad night, that's, people's opinion. But like you said, when you pay the judges and you're the promoter, it's pretty evident that all these weird scorecards are always for the fighter that's the A side, like we saw with Canelo and Golovkin, Adelaide Bird with that crazy scorecard. I mean, I could go on and on. You could even trace back to Whitaker Chavez in San Antonio, where I don't know if it was Mickey Van or Mickey Duff. I don't know. There were some crazy judges in that fight, as we all know, and had a draw. So if boxing could find a way to get away from having the promoters do the payments, I mean, that would be a huge, huge step in the right direction. Just imagine like the New England Patriots paying their referees.
Exactly.
Against the Miami Dolphins, for instance.
Right.
Yeah, but you can't have it. So you might as well just eliminate it all. But as far as I'm concerned, what we're missing out on is the HBO pre-fight scale, unofficial scale. I thought Charlo was about 180 pounds on fight night, and Castaño maybe 165 at best. I thought he had a 20-pound weight advantage, maybe even more, 185. And Castaño did not let the bigger man bully him, except in the later rounds where that weight really took shape. But if you look at Charlo, his build was exactly that of Michael Spinks when he fought Kyle Week. I know you can't really say, well, he weighed this much. How is Charlo making 156 or 154? That's absolutely
hell. He was 153.
Yeah, I'm thinking of amateurs.
Yeah, he was 153.
There's got to be something going on there. Because when he got in that ring, you could see the neck muscles bulging, the back muscles popping. I mean, I know everything there is to know about steroids back in the early days, okay? And maybe not now. But was there VADA testing for this fight?
No.
Do you know offhand?
No, there was not.
That explains it.
Yeah.
I mean, that explains it right there. I got to hand it to Castaño because he beat up the bigger man. He hurt him in was a 3rd or 4th round with that left hook twice. Almost dropped Charlo. And he really took it to him. I give him credit. And Charlo was exposed. And that's basically all there is to that. I just wish HBO their pre-fight scale can somehow come back into boxing, but it doesn't seem like these fighters want it. I think that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to know what those guys weighed going into the ring. Literally, not the morning of the fight, but actually the evening of the fight, because it looked like super middleweight versus a welterweight at times in there. You know, it really did.
That's what it was. Castaño looks like a welterweight. I think he can make 147. If Spence, who he fought in the amateurs, makes 147, who started his career at 154, I don't see why he can't make that weight. Him and Zoo both can make 147 if they tried. That baffles me why they're not shrinking down. It's just the American fighters like to play that weight advantage. Yeah. Just like a couple months ago, we saw Boots Ennis. He looked like a light heavyweight against that one fighter. He looked like he was like coming up from 140. That was a huge disparity in size. This fight reminded me of that. The only difference is Ennis blew him out. Yeah. Well, Charlo couldn't push this guy around. That shows how skilled a fighter Castaño was, and that only overshadows how big I'm not going to say robbery, because it could have been a draw if he scored every swing round like you said.
Right.
But I think based on the weights, if judges had access to that as well, and then had that in as a criteria to score fights, the smaller man was bullying the bigger man. He outlanded him. He was pressuring the bigger man. That should count for something. So, again, there's got to be some more logic in boxing, and we as fans and you as the media, we have more power than we know. And if the consumer can step up and say, hey, we're not going to buy this anymore, you have power to wield. Yeah. So I'm glad you're in the media calling it out. You're one of the journalists who, you're not pandering to anybody, and we need that. We need accountability. And like the other caller said about judges being held accountable, that needs to happen, where fighters see their names and say, no, I'm not trust this guy. I don't want him. There needs to be more of that. Instead of about gloves, it needs to be more about, hey, who's refereeing and who's judging? Because I guarantee if Golovkin's people and Kovalev's people spoke up about who was the referees in their fight and who the judges were, they could have avoided a lot of problems. And another thing with that, if you take out the judges like maybe a couple days before, who's to say that money hasn't transversed to the judge yet, and then they move him out and you bring a new judge in right at the last minute? That's going to dissuade a lot of promoters from buying off judges. If you like the movie Untouchables, when they removed the jury that was bought off, why don't you do the same in boxing? At least have the threat of it being there. So now maybe, hey, if I'm Golden Boy, maybe I'm not going to, persuade Adelaide Bird with the sweetener or whatever, because maybe she might not even be the referee. There has to be something there where there's going to be a pool of 5 or 6 judges, and they get selected the day of the fight, maybe to quit the tampering and the obvious corruption. So I'm hoping the callers might jump on that, because again, there's not much more we could say about the fight itself. You pretty much explained it. It was what it was. It was an easy fight to score. Yeah. It wasn't scored properly, and it was scored for the A side fighter to benefit. So again, hoping callers will follow up, but I'm going to let you get to them, and I'm going to listen and see what you have to say. Okay.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Thad. I appreciate it, man. Hey, you called it last week. You called it because you said this was going to happen.
Yeah. And take that into account when Usyk fights AJ. It's going to be the same thing.
That's going to be interesting.
When you're betting this fight, like I did last week, I just didn't think Charlo was going to get a draw. I thought he was going to get the decision because of the corruption. Luckily, I had a little bet on the draw, 18-1. But buyer beware on the Usyk AJ fight. It's going to be the carbon copy. This has to stop in boxing. So maybe if we get out in front of that fight, have some accountability before that fight, maybe that could change at least the appearance of what's on in store.
The minute I find out who those judges are for that fight, I'm going to be tweeting it out, blasting it out there, and we'll see what we can do, man. But good stuff, Thad. Good stuff, man.
All right. Thank you. I'll be listening.
All right, brother. Yeah, man. Thad called it. And Nacho here in the chat, he says, Michael, do I get credit for my upset pick since Castaño got screwed? You do get credit. You called it too. Look, man, you guys, I thought that this was going to be a decisive win for Charlo. And you know what? That's a whole other thing we need to get to real quick before I jump to the next call. Super chat pledge from Feeling Dangerous again. Thank you so much, man. You guys are being really supportive today. Thank you very much. He says, what do you think about Charlo's post-fight comments? Oh, great question. Saying he needs time off and didn't really say he wants a rematch. Castaño said he did. You're absolutely right, man. Charlo did not handle the post-fight interview very well. He was asked about a rematch, and he did not seem eager. Even if you're really not eager for it, all you got to do is say, yeah, let's do that shit. Let's run it back. If the fans want it, that's all a fighter has to say. Even if you don't want it, because there's so much that you could be protected by your promoter and everything else. But for him to screw that up and say, well, I need some time off. Time off, bro, you've been sitting on your ass all year. You guys fight once, maybe twice a year. You're just coming over off a pandemic where you didn't get to fight. You should be hungry to get right back in there and fight some more. Castaño, that was his response. He was like, yeah, I want to get right back in there. Let's do this again. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. And that's the response you want from a fighter. Always. That's the response you want. Now, if there was an injury or something, okay, fine. But that wasn't the case. Neither guy was really badly hurt in this fight. Little bumps and bruises, on their face, but that was it. So, that response told me a lot. And there was a little Al Heyman exposure with that response from Charlo, okay? And I'm not going to get on this whole anti-Al Heyman thing because that's not the point of the show today. But Heyman does map things out for his fighters far in advance. And there is a sit and wait, hurry up and wait kind of thing that happens over there. Hey, take these ducats under the table, sit on your butt for the rest of the year. We're setting things up next year when the budgets open up. We can do this. We can get $2 million more dollars if we wait and do it this way, do it that way, right? Those kind of things, that's how they play over there. They maximize the dollars and they manipulate the fans. And again, this is just their business model. It's not necessarily good, bad, whatever. Whatever side of the fence you sit on this politically, cool, it's okay. I'm just telling you the way it is. They marinate things. They develop prospects very, very slowly. Guys will fight 30 times before they're fighting for their first world title. And in this era of boxing with so many fucking world titles, you really could be fighting, especially if you had an amateur background, you could be fighting for a world title a dozen fights in. There's just no reason why you shouldn't be. Seriously, guys, there's hundreds of world titles out there. They're still milking it 30 fights in before these guys are going for world titles. Look at the Charlo's resumes. This is something Doug Fisher talked about in his mailbag last week. So for Charlo to say he needs time off, it makes me think that there is a plan set over there on that side of, hey, after we beat Castaño, here's what we're doing. Blah, 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 blah. Early next year, we're doing this. Here's the next move. Boom, boom, boom. And Charlo, because of that preordained plan that's set for him, didn't quite know what to say, and he didn't quite know how to answer that question. That's what I picked up there. And I wasn't the only one. My boy CJ saw the same thing. We were actually texting each other. He was like, yo, did you see how he said that? And I was like, yeah. And we kind of saw the same thing because it just shows you business is done a little differently over there, okay? And look, it's one thing if you have a big undisputed championship fight on the horizon that your team is planning, but that was this fight. You shouldn't have a plan for after this fight. This is the fight. So to have some sort of plan mapped out already where you're going to be sitting on your butt for the rest of the year, that's just bizarre, man. So for him to answer the question the way he did, and for Castaño to answer completely differently, it just shows you that the promotion had one idea in mind for one fighter and a different idea in mind for a different fighter. If I was Castaño, considering that point and the scoring from Nelson Vasquez, I would be extremely fucking cautious about dealing with these people in the future. And I would make sure if I did, I at least got my dollars up the way Gennady Golovkin did dealing with Canelo Alvarez in their rematch. Yeah, Golovkin sold the fuck out and went right back to the Devil's Den, right, in Nevada and dealt with Canelo again, knowing what he was facing with the judges, but at least he got his paper up. And if I'm Castaño, If I'm dealing with these people again, knowing now everything that I know, because there's enough hints there, everything I just told you guys, there's enough hints there, right? Make sure that you get your paper up. And if you can't, go fight Tim Tszyu in Australia, because you'll probably make more money over there. That's the truth. That is the truth. Also, one more quick thing. Pound for pound. Where did all you pound for pound heroes go? Where'd you guys go? Because last week, the week before that, for months before that even, Ring Magazine was being called everything from corrupt by people like Teddy Atlas, right? Because we don't rate guys like the Charlos and Gervonta Davis on our pound for pound list. So Teddy Atlas has gone off on rants on his UFC podcast, dissing Ring Magazine, saying we're corrupt, we're a joke, right? Where are you now, Teddy? You got your clicks, right? You got all your casuals clicking your video. I love you, Teddy. You've done so much wonderful things for the sport of boxing, but I know what you're doing over there. Where are you now? Let me see your pound for pound list, Teddy. Let's see it. I know you do a UFC podcast, but I'm talking boxing. Where's your pound for pound list? All you guys that were dissing Ring's pound for pound list because we didn't have Mel up there, where are you now? You guys got real quiet. Funny how that shit works. You were bitching about Gervonta Davis not being on the pound for pound list. This dude lost rounds to Mario Barrios, a guy who won't be ranked a year from now. And we're supposed to have him on the pound for pound list right now? The fuck out of here. All you guys disappear when you get proven wrong. And I'm not saying our ratings are perfect. We own it when we make a mistake. We own it, okay? Our ratings are not perfect. But again, I will put our ratings up against any other fucking platform out there. We're the best in the business. And you know this. That's why you come at us all the time. All right, back to the phones. We go. Looks like we got a UK caller. 796, you're on the show. What's up?
Hello, Mike. It's Amit.
Hi, man. What's going on, man?
Yeah, Mike, I don't know, man. I think that was a straight up robbery. I might be in the minority, but I haven't felt like this after a fight since Kovalev Ward, and I'd go back to Bradley Pacquiao. If people think it was a close fight, I disagree completely. Sad made a very good point last week on the podcast, and I'm afraid Pacquiao Spence and Usyk Joshua could end up like this as well. Whether that happens, we'll see. But I had that fight 8-4 live. I thought it was 9-3, but I'll concede I might have had it around wide. But there were Charlo fans in my Google Hangouts group who had a 9-3 to Charlo and 10-2 for not Charlo, Castaño. Sorry,
I was going to say
Castaño. And one had a 10-2. I think he was a bit wide, but no one thought Charlo won that fight. A draw, I think you're really bending over backwards and giving Charlo every swing round, and we don't really judge fights like that. Steve Kim made a great point. From round 2 to round 9, I don't round 10. Steve Howard, I think, was completely off. But Steve Kim made on round 9. Steve Kim made a very good point. Was there really a clear round? Charlo won. I gave him the second, but after 6, I had a 5-1. I thought if I give it to 4-2, I think I was being a bit generous. So after 6 rounds, I can't see Charlo winning more than the second round. There was maybe a knockdown that the referee could have given where Charlo's legs or back, I think, hit the ropes. But regardless, you can give Charlo that fight, or even a draw, I think. I can't see. I thought 9-3 to anywhere to 7-5, I can live with that scorecard. But to me, those judges were brought in to do a favor. I like Steve Weisfeld, but that was not a 10-8 round. I can live with the scorecard.
Was it Steve Weisfeld that had the 10-8?
Yeah, I think he was trying to. Bookkeeping is the word. I think you or Steve Kim made after the Kovalev Ward fight. These judges, they'll try and make some of these fights seem closer than it is, but when you look at some of these scorecards round by round, how they're judging it, I actually thought this was a worse decision than Canelo Golovkin. I might be in the minority. I had that fight 7-5 for Golovkin. I hated that 118-110 card, but I can understand live why they had that draw. It was a reasonable scorecard because the first 3 rounds of that fight and the last 3 I thought were close. If you gave Canelo every benefit in those rounds, you could come up with 6. I don't agree with that. I thought you could go 7-5 or 8-4 to Golovkin, but in this fight, Charlo basically took off first 8 of the 9 rounds. So for people saying Lomachenko got washed, where is the consistency? In that fight, at least Lomachenko woke up in the 8th in the 8th or 9th round, and he pretty much dominated the latter half of the last quarter of the fight. I thought Teofimo won the 12th round, but I just think a lot of people don't know how to score fights, and I'm losing interest in boxing. After that, I'm not sure I want to watch this sport. I'll watch the other two big fights, but I just think when people always say a fight could go either way, why do the B-side never get the benefit of the doubt? Like, that draw, I thought was bogus. Like, there was only one scorecard I thought I could accept or live with, and I don't know. I don't want to get into a long run. I just think this will never go away. Paulie Malignaggi posted something, said this after the Adrian Broner fight. I thought he lost that fight, but it was a 170-111 card in that fight. And this is always aligning with Al Heyman. There are other promoters, but let's look at it. There's a track record. Paul Williams, Sergio Martinez. One judge had that 119, 109
that was
for
bad.
Williams. You look at the Lara fight with Williams with Ring Magazine. I remember that.
Yep.
They recognized that victory because they gave Williams, 8 or something rounds in a fight that he clearly lost. And then Korobov and Charlo, the other Charlo, a fight that I thought was close. That could have been a draw, 1-7-5 either way. One judge had it 11-1. I think this is corruption. That judge who had it 9-3, I think he was paid off. And I just think this is a track record and a history in boxing that goes back to judges like TJ Ross. The judge that had won the Holyfield and Lennox Lewis fight, that was not a draw. But there was a woman judge that gave, I think, Holyfield the victory in that fight. These judges need to be held accountable, but I don't think anything will be done. And you're right, boxing is not the only sport, but this is the major or main combat sport. And if you line up all the major sports, this is the only sport where the fight finishes or the contest, and we don't know who's won. Because now people are saying this was a close fight, and I don't know, like, just because the fight is competitive, not every fight is close. I could concede that if some people thought Ward and Kovalev was a bit close, because the last 6 rounds of that fight, Ward, I thought, came on strong. I still don't think he won it, but I had to rewatch that fight to see how Kovalev actually won that fight. Because I had it too close, I thought. I had a 6-6 live, but this fight, I didn't get the same feel. I think Charlo got dominated. And did he really win more than 2 clear rounds if you look at it? I don't think he did. You could give him a couple more swing rounds, but to me, that was a straight up robbery. I don't know what you think about that, but I don't think that was a fair decision. And if they do have a rematch, this is one last point I'll make. And Charlo wins that, a lot of people will probably forget about this fight. And that's the bad thing, what's happened in the past with Meldrick Taylor and Chavez. And there's been other fights with Prina Whittaker. He got robbed as well. I just think
Canelo Golovkin
should be held. But yeah, that was the fight as well. I thought that fight, it should have been more consistency. If they had the first fight to draw, then maybe give the rematch a draw. If they had the first fight for Golovkin, then they could have given the rematch to Canelo, which I thought was how I scored it. But is a track record. Kovalev Ward the rematch as well. I thought Ward may have gone on to win it, but the stoppage was very bad. And I'm not sure if anything will be done. But thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, Hamed. And listen, have a good one, brother. I appreciate your frustration. You know, I share it, and you're not alone. A lot of people feel this way. Here's the dichotomy of this whole situation. It was a bad scorecard. Look, the other 2 scorecards I'm good with. I can live with them. They were giving Charlo the benefit of the doubt in the close rounds, but that's what we expected, unfortunately. But they were within the realm of possibility. The one scorecard, though, is what we're all talking about. And you guys heard Hamed. Hamed is a boxing diehard. He calls in all the time. He calls into several shows. He does his own shows. And he's an example of a guy that's so frustrated by this. And I understand. I feel that frustration. We've all felt that frustration, right? And yet, the fight itself was really good. If you take away these scorecards and you just look at the fight itself, were you not entertained? I was. I thought both guys showed us something. I thought Charlo underperformed and Castaño overperformed. I saw that. But let's give Charlo some credit. He did come back in those late rounds. He did win, I think, at least 1 or 2 of those last 4 rounds to make the fight close, to make it interesting. He could have just laid down and faded away and let Castaño take over. He didn't do that. And when he hurt Castaño late, Castaño showed something by standing his ground and fighting back. And he actually put Charlo on the back foot after being buzzed in those later rounds. So both guys showed us a lot, and it was a good fight. But unfortunately, we're not talking about that. And Hamed brought up a good point about the rematch, the way the rematch tends to go in these types of situations, okay? Canelo Golovkin 2. Canelo got the W in the second fight, and you could make the case he won that fight, okay? I really think it could have went either way. You can make a case Golovkin won. You can make a case for a draw. I'm talking about the rematch. But because he got the W, boxing fans remember that. They don't remember the first fight. So years from now, when I vote for Gennady Golovkin in the Boxing Hall of Fame 5 years after he retires, because he's a first balloter in my estimation, I'm going to remember that first fight where I thought he clearly decisively beat a prime Canelo Alvarez and then was competitive with him in the second fight. No one else has been competitive with Canelo since. Not even close. The guy's barely lost a round, and he's fought some solid fighters, some solid guys, right? So that means a lot. But people forget the first fight when their guy wins the rematch. Kovalev lost badly to Ward in the rematch, and Ward showed some real dog, and he got a little dirty, but he won that fight, right? People forget in that first fight, most people, the night of the fight, because I was there for both of these fights, guys, I go around and I talk to the fans, I talk to my friends in the media, my peers, and I ask them questions. I'm telling you, 90% of the people there thought Kovalev beat Ward. Even Ward fans, the crowd, which was pro-Ward, was booing the decision. But because of the way the rematch went, people tend to forget the first fight because it's convenient, right? Same thing with the Canelo Golovkin situation. And it wouldn't shock me if we see a rematch here and they delay it to next year, they do some trickery and some fuckery with the timing to get Castaño off his training camp routine, whatever, and Charlo wins the rematch, right? People will forget about this first fight. And that's just the way it goes throughout boxing history. There's all this trickery and fuckery. I'm telling you right now, if I'm Brian Castaño, if Tim Tszyu's team is going to offer me, if they're going to match what Charlo's team would match for a rematch, I'm going to Australia and fighting over there against Tim Tszyu. That's a winnable fight. And if you can make that kind of money, and it's only for one title, so you could come back and still do a rematch with Charlo later on because people want to see that rematch because it was such a damn good fight. That's what I would advise Castaño to do in this situation. Let's see here. I missed a super chat from my man CJ, who just says, bang, 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 in my Jim Lampley voice. Let's go right now. Let's fight. I wish I had that soundbite still. Jim Lampley's voice gets more and more high-pitched, depending on how exciting it gets. I don't know how his throat doesn't go up halfway through a fight. All right, back to the phones we go. 805, what's up? You're on the show.
Hey, Mike, what's going on? I'm in the similar boat as Hamed, but I'm not going to go as far as saying that I'm going to stop watching the sport because, unfortunately, I just love watching it. When it's at its best, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
So as frustrated as I can be about situations like this, it doesn't stop me from, continuing to watch it. So, I mean, it sucks for Castaño because he legitimately, you say you don't want people to use the word robbery. Well, I'll use this word instead. I feel this fight was taken from Castaño, in my opinion. I thought he did more than enough to get that W, and it was taken from him, especially by that rotten-ass judge, Nelson Vasquez. That's horrible. There's really no other way to describe how you legitimately could sit there and give every benefit of a doubt to a guy who clearly got pushed around by the smaller fighter almost all night, was never able to really land combinations except for the 2 rounds where he hurt him, and Castaño got no credit for making him back up against the ropes. hitting him to the body, hitting him with those sneaky right hands over and over all night. I mean, if there's not a bigger indictment of how badly, to me, Charlo was performing or losing, is that his own trainer was yelling at him in the corner, "You need a knockout to win." I mean, at that point, there's no dispute that he was losing that fight. And when they called it a draw, he was very relieved to be walking out of there with those belts because, like you said, Mike, Castaño is not a PBC guy. He's affiliated with them because Leikowitz and a couple other people behind the scenes brought him in, but he's not one of their guys. So if he would have won and walked away with all 4 belts, Al Heyman is left with a lot of egg on his face, a bunch of guys in that division, and no titles available to him unless he goes out of his way to overpay Castaño to defend them on his side of the street. But, you know, it is what it is. It sucks for Castaño that this fight was taken from him because he deserved the win. And like you said, Charlo didn't sound all that enthused to me about a rematch, and that's pretty telling. But also, too, I think what they're going to do, like you said, Mike, I think they're going to pull the whole, well, we got mandatories, and we're going to, go ahead and take care of those, and then maybe sometime next year we'll give Castaño the rematch. So basically, they're going to let him get a little bit more shop worn, a little bit more damage on him, and then eventually they'll take him on again, you know? Yep. And that sucks for Castaño, but I hope, like you said, I hope Castaño and his team are smart, and if they get a huge offer from Tim Tszyu to go to Australia, why the hell not go there and get paid?
I
mean, why go back to the PBC if they're not going to pay you and they're not going to treat you fairly, you know? So, and then just real quick on the other fights that were on that card. Rolly Romero has to be one of the most god-awful title holders I've ever seen in the sport.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen a dude who fights like he does. And what was crazy to me was the referee in the fight was allowing him to get away with some very MMA-like moves. And at one point, Rolly Romero did a damn judo hip toss to his opponent.
Yeah.
And the referee didn't penalize him. And I'm like, what the hell is this guy waiting for? Like, is he waiting for Romero to do something really illegal in order to get disqualified? Like, it was unbelievable. I mean, the only time he penalized him was when he hit him with a shot that was a borderline below the belt shot. But I'm thinking to myself, good God, like, the hip toss wasn't enough for you to penalize the guy? Like, I mean, that's some bullshit. But I did find it interesting, though, that Romero thinks that he's on the level of Tank Davis to go ahead and call him out. I think Tank Davis wipes the floor with this kid.
Oh, yeah.
I think this kid's been matched very carefully, and he's been matched very favorably as far as the guys who are fighting him. If he fights anybody who has any decent amount of pop in their hands, this kid's in trouble. And, I mean, it'll be curious to see because Mayweather manages both guys. I'd be very interested to see if he would match two of his own guys together in a fight. But, you know, we'll see what happens. And then the other fight with Vidal and Aleem, I thought Vidal was very pedestrian-like. I don't think he's much of a threat at 160. I know that they're trying to develop guys at 160 so that the other Charlo brother has opponents to fight because right now their side of the street is completely bare and there's not a whole hell of a lot in that division for them. But I think Vidal is a project, and I think it's going to be a few years before you see a legit guy that can contend for a title. You know, he won the fight, but he wasn't all that impressive to me. I thought Aleem was a little bit more impressive. I thought he showed a little bit more considering that he was with Ronnie Shields, and it looks like, you know, they're working together, and it looks like they're working well together. But I'm not all that impressed with Vidal. I think he's a long-term project, and it'll be a few years before he's a legit threat to anybody at 60. And the fight this weekend, really, like the Joyce Takam. I think you're right. I think Takam is the perfect guy for this. Is a stay busy fight to me for Joyce. They picked Takam because they know he's a little shop worn and he's a name, and they can put him on Joyce's ledger. But this is totally a stay busy fight for Joyce, because I think he's going to want to go after Joshua or somebody at some point, because I don't think they can keep they can afford to wait much longer to get him a legit title shot. I mean, it's one thing to move up the ranks when you're in your 20s, but this guy's in his mid 30s. I mean, the time is now. How much longer are you going to keep, gradually building this guy up? At some point, you got to either go all in on him or just, take the slow and easy route. But I think eventually they're going to go after Joshua or Wilder or somebody, Fury, who knows? But they're going to try to go after somebody with Joyce. And with the fact that he's got power and he's a huge guy, he's definitely, he could be a threat to any of those guys. Because if he lands on any of them, he could definitely put any of those guys out. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. I feel like Castaño had that fight taken from him, and unfortunately for him, he goes back home with only one title instead of the 4 that he deserved. But we'll see. That's my call, Mike.
All right, Nacho. Good stuff, brother.
All right, thanks.
Good stuff. Yeah, let's get up here. I got one quick super chat. Trini with the super chat. Thank you so much, Trini. Said, Mike, Aleem was also screwed by the judges and nobody is talking about it. Why? Good point. Nacho brought it up a little bit in his call, but I think this one's sliding under the radar because it was on the undercard, man. And quite frankly, it was, as I mentioned, Aleem is now, in his last 5, he is 1-3-1. He was brought in there to lose. He was brought in there as an opponent. I don't think it was an outright complete robbery, but to be honest with you guys, I didn't see the first 3-4 rounds of that fight. I came in a little bit later in the fight, but as I mentioned at the top of the show, Vidal isn't anything to get excited about. He's a work in progress, and they got a lot to build with him. But I think Aleem is, it seems he's kind of become okay with being that opponent guy. That's he's at that stage now, and it's really up to him and what he wants to do going forward. Does he want to become the opponent and just get called in to go in there and fight these guys and go the distance and be tough with them and maybe even beat them and get screwed on the cards and take L's and just collect the paycheck? I know a lot of fighters like that. There's so many that are complacent in that process because like, shit, I'm getting paid. This is my job. They stay in shape. They know that they'll get a call. They got a few weeks to get ready. One fight might be at 160, the next fight might be at 47, and then the next one's at 54. And they're bouncing all over the place, but they're brought in by different promoters, and they're kind of like a hired mercenary. And they'll just come in, hey, pay me. Oh, I got to be at what weight in 3 weeks? Shit. You have to up it 10 more G's for me to lose that much weight. Okay, cool. Come on in. Boom, we'll take care of you and your family. Put you up, get you a paycheck. Happens all the time, guys. And to me, Aleem is maybe becoming that guy. And it's funny because, I talked to Jimmy Williams a couple weeks ago who just fought Yuri Foreman here in Atlanta and scored the upset. And he told me straight up he was becoming that dude. He went through a period like that where I want to say he lost like 4 or 5 fights. And they were all over the place weight-wise. And he was just fighting on all these different promoter shows, getting called at the last second. And he was basically at the time said, all right, fuck it, just pay me, and showing up and fighting. And he made a decision that no more of this shit. I'm not doing that anymore. And he changed trainers and it has a new outlook. He's staying at the same weight. It's up to Aleem. As far as Vidal, I just don't see anything special there, but he's still young. We'll see what happens. All right, back to the phones. Let's get through these guys. We got another UK call, 780. You're on the show. What's up?
Hi, Mike. Chris Bergen. How you doing?
Chris, what's up, man? I thought that was you. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. Are you?
Good.
Yeah. First thing I'd like to say is I rang in last week and I said that Tyson Fury pulled out twice against David Haye. I was actually wrong. It was the other way around. It was David Haye pulled out twice against Tyson Fury. So if anyone was watching that and shouting at the screen, I apologize for that one. I think it was a shoulder injury for David Haye, and then he retired after that, and then came back about 3 years later. So, but just thought I'd throw that one out there first of all.
Hey man, we all do it. I do it pretty much every week. So good on you for owning that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we get some wrong, we get some right. So yeah, I was just thinking, going on about the judges. Like any other sport, these guys, judges, referees, and things will be investigated. There's no other sport as bad as boxing for this. They seem to just get away with it scot-free.
Yeah. I really don't know what to say at this point. You've heard me bitch and rant, and I've gone after Bob Bennett. I've gone after Oscar De La Hoya. I've gone after so many promoters. I've gotten on all these bad lists, and like the WBC doesn't call me anymore to go to their functions, or the WBA can't fucking stand me. And it doesn't get me anywhere. It gets me less money, less jobs, less gigs. But you guys, you guys know I'm always going to fight the good fight, but I just, we all know nothing's going to happen here. Nothing will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one big example I can think of is, I'm from England, so I'm a big football fan. And I think it was 2005 in the European Champions League. Chelsea played a game against Barcelona, and the referee was, well, you could say he was corrupt. He was either corrupt or had the worst game of his life, and he was never seen again. No one ever saw him in a game ever again after that. So,
There you go.
Yeah, in sports, like, if anyone wants to check that out on YouTube, check it out. Chelsea Barcelona 2005 is ridiculous. If you watch it, it's absolutely ridiculous. Clearly the rest of it was never seen again. I thought Castano won. Going back to the Castano Charlo fight, I thought he won it 7-5. I think you could make a case for 8-4, but I think he won 7-5. And I put myself a little list together of like the fights that I've seen over the last 5 years or so, that I think were the worst three judge scorecards. And number one was Canelo versus Triple G1 Adelaide Bird 118, 110. That's the worst one I've seen. The second worst I've seen was recent one, Lewis Ritson versus Vasquez.
Yep.
The judge Terry O'Connor.
He's
O'Connor
had a few.
It 117. Yeah, 117, 111 for Ritson. Yep. When I thought Vasquez won that fight clearly.
Yep.
And then I would say the Nelson Vasquez 117, 111 for Charlo is probably third in the last few years that I've seen.
Well, Hamed brought up another one here in the chat. CJ Ross had Mayweather versus Canelo a draw.
That's true. That's true. It was never a draw.
The difference there is Mayweather was so powerful at the time. He was the most powerful fighter in the sport that CJ Ross never worked again. She was out. And that does go to show you how the power structure in boxing works, because
true.
She screwed Mayweather over, and Floyd wasn't having that. And Floyd ran that Nevada commission. She was out. Interesting, huh? Didn't happen to any of these other judges.
But when the money man is involved, Mayweather.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah. Well, I think Castano is like the new Badu Jack now. If anyone wants to make any money, put a bet on a draw in his next fight.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. That's a good point.
Yeah, Badu Jack with these 4 draws or whatever he's got.
Yeah, he's the draw man.
That's a couple now. I mean, was it Erisani Lara that Castano drew with last?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Put your money on a draw his next fight.
And a lot of people thought he beat Lara pretty clearly too.
Yeah, I think he won that fight as well. But I mean, hopefully we see him against Tim Tszyu next. I love that fight. I think it's a very good fight.
I'd love to see it. because of the politics involved in this situation, and because the PBC would probably put both these guys on ice till next year to wait for the rematch, I would rather see Castaño fight Zhu this year. If that fight can happen in the fourth quarter, that would be great. Do it in Australia, and I think it would be a really, really fun event. There'd be a huge crowd over there. It'd be passionate. It'd be fun. I'm trying to think of the last time an Australian fighter fought for a major world title in Australia in front of a big crowd like that. It's been a while. I guess it was Jeff Horn.
Oh, yeah, Jeff Horn, yeah.
Yeah, but that was like a vacant title, I think, when he fought Pacquiao. I want to say that was a vacant title. But that would be a lot of fun. I really hope it happens.
Yeah. But with Tim Zhu, I really like what I see with him. I think, him versus Castaño. From what I saw with Castaño as well, I think that's a really close fight, and I think it's a really good fight, and people should want to see that.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. I know I've got a bit of a invested interest with Tim Zhu because my favorite night of my life from boxing was when Ricky Hatton beat his dad.
Man,
back in the day.
What year was that?
That's got to be 2003, I want to say. 2000.
Okay, let me look. I got to look it up now. I was going to guess 2004. Let's see who's right. The winner gets a free beer.
I think.
2005. Oh, I was a little closer.
Oh, wow.
2005.
Well,
man, 16
that was one of the
years.
Best nights of my life in boxing.
Were you there?
Yeah.
Oh,
me and my friends, we went out for a night out in Manchester, and then we obviously got to the time. It was a late fight, and we were like, "Oh, we need to go find somewhere to find this fight." And then we ended up at this random person's house and watched this fight at this random person's house with must have been 20 people there in this like little tiny house watching it.
I've been there before. Great. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy, man? Kids born in that year now are 16 years old. Like I think about stuff like that. I'm like, holy shit. Like, that fight was 16 years ago, like crazy. Crazy.
What else? You were talking about Teddy Atlas before. I watched a video with him, and it was after Josh Taylor beat Ramirez, and he said if Josh Taylor wins, he'll eat crumpets and drink tea on his video. Anyway, he did the video, and he said, "I've got the crumpets. I'm eating the crumpets," and they weren't crumpets. They were scones, a totally different food. It was eating. So all the British people were getting really pissed off in the comment section.
He didn't even get real freaking. A crumpet is like an English muffin, right? I think we would call that an English muffin here.
Sort of. They don't sell them in America.
I've gotten them before.
It's like a northern England thing, really.
Okay, yeah, I've had them before, and they're good, man. Yeah, I'm looking right here. I just Googled it. I gotta show everybody here. I gotta share my screen. I've had crumpets, man. They are good. I gotta say. Here we go. Boom.
But yeah, crumpets. You put them in a toaster. You put your crumpets in the toaster. Have them with butter.
Yeah.
You have them with butter. Maybe have some cheese on it or something. But with he had the scones, which you have.
That's a completely different thing.
And jam with. Yeah, completely different thing. Yeah.
I'm looking at crumpets here.
It's breakfast.
Now, I've had crumpets before, and I put on. Here's how much of a freaking Italian I had crumpets. I put butter, but I also put garlic and Parmesan on it. And I gotta say, it was pretty fucking good.
That was pretty nice with that.
It was pretty fucking good, Chris. I gotta say. But,
anyway. all the listeners are thinking, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, they're like back to boxing.
But the last point I've got is I was rewatching the 10 count with you and Steve Kim, Doug Fisher. And I was thinking, you guys need to bring a new version of that back. That'd be unbelievable.
We've talked about it. I'm trying to think who. There's an entity. The one of the producers at 10 count or at UCN still owns the rights to the 10 count. So I've talked about it with Steve, and we've talked about trying to get that name somehow and buying it off them or whatever, and figuring out if we could do it. But we have talked about it. And if there's any way we can make something like that happen, absolutely freaking will. I miss doing the show with those two guys. You know, I look up to them. I think they're two of the best in the business, and they've been mentors to me. So it was pretty awesome for me to work with them.
Yeah, just change the name. Different name.
Yeah,
Thank
maybe
God.
we just the 8 count, the standing 8 count.
Yeah.
Just do that.
Standing 8 count, yeah. That'd be great. All right, cheers, mate. That's on the
All right, brother.
So good to speak to you again.
All right, man. Have a good
great
one.
show as always. Appreciate it. Cheers, man.
All right, cheers.
Bye.
Yeah, I have talked about that with Steve and Doug, and maybe one of these days we can make it happen. All right, we got a few more calls, guys. Let's plow through these. 847, you're on the show.
Mike, how you doing? This is Rich from Illinois.
Rich, what's up, man? Good to hear from you.
Hey, man, how's it going? I tried to call last week, but you had a lot of calls, and I couldn't get to it on time. So
it's all good, man.
Man, just well, first of all, I just want to give you your props for doing a good job on the show and telling it like how it is. So,
thank you.
You're one of the very few podcast shows that I listen to, just because you just, like I said, you tell it like how it is. So, and also, good luck on your boxing match you got coming up. I think your training's going along pretty good. Because Hasbullah's a killer, man. So you got to get ready for that. So,
hey, that dude's always packing a gun, man. He's always got a machine gun or something. So, he's going to come into the ring strapped.
He's got something
going
on.
Yeah, man.
They're doing something really good with they're doing something really good with that guy over there.
Hell yeah.
Promo videos that they're doing. But really quick, I was hoping for a Tyson Fury Wilder 2-hour program, but it doesn't seem like we're getting that today.
Nope. God damn, you're right, bro.
No, I think
that was going to be this weekend. Holy shit.
No, I think people are kind of tired of that, to be honest with you. As far as the postponement for that fight, I might be in the majority here, but I don't think it was due to COVID. That's just kind of my thinking.
Mm.
So and who knows what the real reason for the postponement is. People have their different speculations, everything. But I just want to talk about everybody had good points today, all the callers. As far as this weekend's card, I just had a couple comments on it. First of all, I just want to point out that the whole card, the PBC card, the triple header this week was really good. I thought the Alim Vidal fight was really good, and the Castaño and Charlo fight were like really great fights. So I just want to put it out there first before I get into the whole scoring aspect of it. As far as Vidal and Alim, yeah, that fight was pretty close. I had Alim winning that fight pretty close, like 6 rounds to 4. I wouldn't necessarily go as a robbery on that one, but it was a very close fight. I wouldn't complain too much for a draw on that one either. But it was a good, entertaining fight that started the program. I didn't see too much in Vidal. Like, he's got some good power, but I don't know. I'm not sure how far he's going to go on with his career.
Yeah.
Alim put a pretty good performance, considering I think he had like a 2-year layoff or 1.5 year layoff. So he did pretty good, better than I expected. Now going to the Romero, Rolly Romero, he did fight. I don't see anything special in Romero, and I never have. I know he's kind of a big deal, maybe with social media and his interviews and the way the way he portrayed himself, but like I don't see anything special in him. And then in a way, he was already exposed when they stepped him up against was it Jackson Marinas.
Yeah,
I thought he clearly lost that fight.
Most people did.
Bad scoring, and I actually that fight. You want to say robbery? I would say that fight was a robbery right there.
Yeah, I completely agree. He lost that damn fight.
Yeah, I thought that was a robbery. I mean, I thought he was totally lost one-sided there, but he got the decision. But he's a powerful guy. He's pretty hard, but he just relies on power punches from what I'm seeing. I think at some point you step it up again against someone solid in that division, the lightweight division. I think someone's gonna get to him at some point. I just, like I said, I don't see anything special in him. Regardless, if they give him a fight with Tank Davis, I highly doubt that's going to happen right now. But if they do that, it'll be pretty quick. I think pretty quick knockout victory for Tank if that really happens. So
yeah.
But yeah, I don't see anything special with him on that. Going to the main event, like I said, I think everybody had good points today. The guy before that said the fight was taken from Castaño, and I think so too. I believe so too. The other guy probably said it was a robbery. I'm not gonna go like that far, but I scored the fight 8-4 actually for Castaño. I thought it was a clear victory for him. I could see maybe a 7-5. Actually, I had I gave Charlo rounds 2, 5, 10, and 12 was the 4 rounds that I gave to Charlo. I thought they were pretty clear rounds for Charlo. If there was a swing round, it's kind of my observation, it'd definitely be the 11th round. Then maybe you can make a case for Charlo. If that was the case, we're looking at 7-5. But I even have a really big problem giving that a draw. You know what I'm saying? Like 114, 114. I thought it was just a clear win. He fought his fight. He put the pressure. He was, the effective. He was the cleaner puncher. And to me, he just kind of he outworked Charlo, especially when he had him on the ropes. Yeah. He outworked him. One of the big things, I wrote like a little column for Isai Bakken on that fight, and that was kind of my major question was like, how well would Charlo stand up to the pressure? And then the other question I had was how well would Castaño take the punches of Charlo? If he was there, obviously he was able to take the punches, and Charlo was able to deal with the pressure. Then we would have had a good fight and possibly an upset. In which, in this case, I thought Castaño pulled it off. Even though he was hurt in rounds 2 and 10, he was able to take it. He hung in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was able to, basically finish the rounds on his feet. He recovered and he fought back. And no disrespect to Charlo, but he just wasn't able to finish him off. But Charlo showed some grit too. I'm not, I have to give him some credit for showing grit, and like I think you mentioned, he came back in the late rounds to make it interesting, and made it an entertaining fight. But other than that, I had a really big problem with the judges' scorecards. Even Steve Weisfeld, even though he scored a fight for Castaño, I'm against the whole 10-8 round that he scored for Charlo in the 10th round. I'm totally against that. I
completely agree.
I'm trying to think if there was a more recent fight where a judge scored it a 10-8 round for a fighter. I guess I would have to do some more research on that, but I just don't agree with that. I mean, he gave the fight to Castaño, but 10-8. I mean, what they gave it 10-8 round, it was like, you could say reverse. Let's say Charlo was hurt pretty bad. Would they give it 10-8 round then? Who knows? But
that's a great point, because they probably wouldn't have.
Right. Well, what if it was reversed? What was reversed?
Yeah.
Would they have done that to Charlo? I highly doubt it.
What's a good example, man? I'm trying to when Sergey Kovalev fought Anthony Yard in 2019, right before he fought Canelo. I want to say it was the 10th round of that fight. Yard almost had him out, and I mean he beat the shit out of Kovalev. Don't quote me if
he was pretty much on the feet.
Right? Yeah. And I can't remember if it was the 9th or 10th. It was one of the late rounds.
One of those rounds. Yeah. Yes.
And to me, like Kovalev did nothing in that round but survive. And he was so out on his feet. Like that to me, okay, that's a 10-8 round. And what's crazy is Kovalev came back and stopped Yard because Yard shot his wad, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but
I agree. It was one of those late rounds. I agree with you, and I think like another example maybe not as much, but like if I recall, even the rematch between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, I think Wilder was just pretty much hurt the entire round, just kind of wobbling over the ring. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think Fury got a 10-8 round. You know what I'm saying?
That's a great point.
Like a 10-9 round. So
well,
I
great
little bit of
point.
favoritism there, So
It's pretty hard
then,
not to notice it.
Well, I see that too, because I'm like, well, why would he give him a 10th round? And I didn't think it was that bad. I thought Castaño was hurt. Yeah, obviously he was hurt and kind of survived, but he was fighting back, and just to me, it didn't warrant a 10th round for sure. So
it felt like a makeup.
Pretty bad. Yeah.
It felt like It felt like a judge thinking, "Oh, well, this will make the fight closer. It's late in the round, and Charlo really needs a round here." It just kind of had that feel to it, and it's just. I like Steve; he's a good judge, but man, that's just not a good look,
No, and then of course the other judge, the Vasquez, who said 117, 111. Yeah, that it's obvious that judge already made up his mind as far as how he was going to score it. So I'm sure he'll get some more gigs too. You know what I mean? I don't think.
Yep.
I think everybody brought up a good point that judges should be held accountable for that, but they won't. It just won't happen. I just don't see it, even though they should. Now, however, let me ask you a question. I believe didn't one of the judges get suspended WBA from the Estrada Gonzalez rematch for one of the horrendous scorecards?
I think so. The WBA, to their credit, has suspended. So I think they suspend from the judge from working WBA fights for maybe a year or something like that. But yeah, and they've done that a couple times, and they've mandated rematches and stuff. So, they did a couple things right here and there, even though they have 5,000 titles. But yeah, they did do that. Yeah.
Okay. So. Yeah. Okay. So then there was something there, but it's not enough. Still, at the end, it's not enough. And and as far as there's bad decisions, but for me, I always keep watching boxing. Bad decisions don't make me turn it off, because I've seen so much more better things in boxing, like action fights, and here and there, we'll get like a bad decision or maybe a robbery, but it's not enough for me to turn off myself away from boxing. You know what I mean? Because when they do good things and they have big fights and there's action fights and there's good matchmaking, I mean boxing's at its best, in my opinion. So and that even surpasses like MMA, because my second sport I like is MMA, but boxing to me has always been superior at all times. Maybe not according to Teddy Atlas now, but but I got I've heard Teddy lately. He's pro UFC now, so and
he's getting work over there, man.
I seen it didn't, and I it's funny that they had Teddy and Max Kellerman.
Yeah,
some analysis after the McGregor Poirier. I saw
Conor
that
McGregor.
Card. I actually saw that card. They had them doing analysis right immediately after the fight. I think it was part of the pay-per-view card. So that was kind of funny to see too. And I just want to bring up a point too. You mentioned the comparison of if Charlo were to win, or if these guys were to do a rematch, if Charlo wins, everybody's going to forget about the first fight, which was a draw. And that is true, because like you mentioned, the perfect example, Triple G and Canelo, that's kind of exactly what happened. Canelo got the second victory and nobody really talks about it. But to be honest with you, they're one apiece, the bottom line. If we go back to that first fight, there's no way Canelo won that fight. I'm one of the biggest Canelo supporters out there, and I'm a big fan of him. I like Triple G too, but everybody, Triple G won that fight. He should have been awarded the victory, and to me, they're one apiece. And maybe I might be one of the few, but I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing a third fight between them. Only, if let's say Canelo Plant doesn't happen for whatever reason, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing a third fight, just because I think, like you mentioned, Triple G is still the last guy to give Canelo the most competitive fight up to date. So
exactly.
that's true. So I mean, I'm not gonna. And if you look at Triple G, I mean, he only has like the one loss to Canelo, and even that was close, right? So, even though I think he's kind of getting close to the age, I think he's kind of seen his best days, but he's still there. And like I said, I wouldn't mind seeing a third fight, between them. So let's see what happens between Caleb Plant and Canelo if they make that fight. So hopefully they get that going.
I hear you, man.
But that was yeah. But like I said, I enjoyed the card overall over the weekend. I thought Castaño won clearly. Of course, everyone wants to see a rematch. I hope Charlo steps it up. They asking for the rematch. I did see some of the post-fight interviews, and it didn't seem like he wanted to run it again with Castaño. Where Castaño wanted it, he wanted that rematch. So different mindsets there. And really quick, do you know what the actual what the attendance was for the fight?
No,
it didn't seem like it was a big crowd there.
No, well, I know for sure that they did paper the venue a little bit, and I only know that because a couple of the ticket brokers I talked to told me, and I even know what vendors PBC was using to paper the event. I mean, one of them was a veterans group where they give tickets to veterans, which is really cool, but it didn't sell very well. They sold thousands of tickets, but it was nowhere near, a sellout or anything like that, which is a shame, because it was a really, really good fight. And like you said, it was a solid triple header. I enjoyed the card, even though there was some shitty judging on it, but for whatever reason, the Charlos don't sell, man. They just don't sell. They have not broken through.
Well,
they were protected for too long. Their resume, they needed to be stepped up sooner, and maybe that's part of why they just didn't sell.
Yeah, that's kind of another question. Like how come they don't sell well? I mean, obviously they're not. I mean, they had the one pay-per-view card was it last year, like that.
Yeah,
they had the card where they were together.
It didn't break 100,000, man.
I understand that sold poorly. It sold poorly.
Yeah.
Even like Tank Davis pay-per-view cards are selling poorly too. I don't know. I don't know if there's like enough push for these guys or what it is, but they're just not draws.
Yeah, it's a combination of things, but
yeah.
But I gotta jump to this next call, man. We got one more call, then we're gonna get out of here, bro.
Oh, okay, man. Sorry.
No, you're good, Rich. You're good, man. Good stuff, brother.
All right, man.
All right, have a good night, bro.
So take it easy.
You too.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. Okay, bye-bye.
We get one more call in here, guys. Then we're gonna go. We're gonna get 619 on the show. 619, what's up?
Hey, Mike, it's Juan Valverde. How you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Finally got lucky and saw that you were live. So
cool.
I always miss it. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the fight this weekend, the Charlo fight, and I guess everybody has talked about the controversy with the scores, and I thought the fight was pretty clear for Castaño. Like I had it like 8-4, 7-5.
Okay. It seems to be the score most people have.
Yeah, I think it was pretty clear. Like, I don't think it was a hard fight to score. I guess you have to be pretty biased or just looking for things for the guy that you like if you want to give it to the other guy. So, but if you don't have any favorites, you're just watching to watch like me. I was just like, this kid from Argentina, he's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
He was,
I was impressed.
Punches. I was impressed. You know what? I was impressed the most, his control distance. And I don't know if people talked about this, but I think he was always positioned and just at the right, kind of like Gennady Golovkin does, that, Charlo would throw a couple of punches, like 1-2, and they would just miss by just a little, like enough space that he would not land. And I was impressed by that because that's something that he just probably practices a lot in the gym, and he would throw those body shots. And was impressed. You know, I like Charlo a lot. I like both brothers. I think their personalities, and I like how they fight. I think they're very inconsistent, both of them. And sometimes, you know, thinking about who's better, the middleweight or the junior middleweight, I never know. Every fight, I feel the one that just fought is worse than the other one, and then the other one fights them, and I think the opposite. You know, I never know. Both of them are really inconsistent, and that's a shame because
they are
like
inconsistent.
The guys, you know, I think they're good for the business. But what I wanted to talk about is about these kind of scores. You know, I think promoters, managers, if these are, I don't know if these are fixes or I don't know how this works, but if they're doing something to kind of, you know, get some scorecards to look that way and rob the right winner, I think they're doing, you know, not only are they doing a disservice to the guy that should have won, but they're also doing a disservice to the guy that should have lost. Because in the end, if you think about it, a guy like Charlo, if he loses this fight, he can come back and win the rematch and look even better, you know?
Yeah.
And just take the loss and then come back. Like, for example, I was thinking about Canelo Triple G, which is one of the biggest mainstream robberies recently from the first fight. If Canelo would have lost that fight, like he should have, and comes back and does that performance like he did in the rematch and wins, how big would that be for him?
Yeah, because it's redemption.
Ray Leonard and it's redemption, exactly. Now people are pissed. You know, people are thinking, this guy, he got a gift again, and people don't like him and start getting salty against him and things like that. And that's part of the reason why some of these guys are hated, you know, because they get gifts instead of getting redemption stories. I was, you know, and I'm sure you watched the documentary in Showtime for the Kings.
Yeah.
Just a fight between Leonard and Duran. Leonard was the big star, even though Duran was the legend at that point. And they did not rob Duran from that win, which would have been an easy thing to do today. A draw or
that's
something.
A great point,
let
man.
the guy take his loss.
Dude, that's a fantastic fucking point. Because if that fight happened today, Leonard would have got the fucking decision over Duran.
Exactly. And everybody would be like, oh, yeah, here you go. You know? And Leonard would be hated. You know? So what happens is the guy says, I want the rematch right now. I want the rematch right now. He gets it and wins. And you know, not only does he get the victory, we get a great story with the no mas, and then things happen, you know. Things actually happen. I think promoters today, managers are missing the point. So you have to let the kids take the loss. It's not wrong to, you know, it's good to lose because you come back. You know, most of the greatest boxers ever had a loss like that. Joe Louis versus Max Schmeling. You know, nobody expected that. Then he comes back and knocks him out in one round. Great story. You know, Ali loses, then comes back. You know, everybody has a story like that. The one point that I think this started was, and this is sad for me because he's my favorite boxer ever, that is when Chavez got that draw with Whitaker. They had some interest there because they wanted that streak to continue because that's what they were selling. So they're like, no, we can't let him lose because then the business stops right here, you know. And they obviously did a disservice to Whitaker and to Chavez too because he should have taken that loss, you know. But again, that's what I wanted to talk about. I think I've been thinking a lot about that because I think Charlo's a nice guy, but they're just controlling their careers in a way that just goes against them, in my opinion.
Man, great fucking call, bro. Great call. Great call to end the show on, man.
No.
Make sure you call in again, dog.
Well, I've been looking for. Yeah, I'm gonna keep an eye on the Twitter to see when you're on because I'm always working at this time. Okay. I'm always on the phone. I can't, you know.
Yeah.
You know, be careful when I call, but no, dude. Thanks for taking my call, and I'll talk again. I'll call again.
All right, man. Have a good one.
See you, man.
Man, some great fucking points on that call that I hadn't considered. The one point I wanted to add something to when he talked about Castaño controlling distance. A lot of people were asking, why didn't Charlo throw the uppercut? He has a great uppercut, right? And Al Bernstein, who was trying a little too hard to help Charlo out during that broadcast with some of his commentary, he kept asking for the uppercut, and a bunch of people were asking. Well, a big reason why he didn't throw it is because Castaño was in the superior position. Castaño maintained distance well. He had good angles, and he was at the right angle and distance where Charlo could not let the uppercut go. That's obviously something Castaño and his team saw and planned for. You could tell he was looking for it. And because he had the right positioning, the right distance, Charlo could not throw that uppercut. And it really affected Charlo's game plan. When he couldn't throw that uppercut, because he expected Castaño to just dive in on him and bow, he was just going to be able to just land that and then get a combination off of that, then turn him, right? Boom, nail him, hook him, push him off, and then repeat. Make him reset, do it all over again. He couldn't get that uppercut off because of Castaño's master of distance and spacing and angles. So that was a great point. Man, what a fantastic freaking call. All right, guys. That's it for the show, man. Some great calls today. Loving it, man. We're getting more and more calls every week. You guys are freaking great. Some just outstanding points. So we'll do the Friday show on my channel, all right? And then we will be back here next Monday for TNC 275, all right? You guys have a great week. Peace.